Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, something terrible happened that changed the world forever. It's a story that not many people know, but today we're going to learn about it together. Welcome to the 5 Untold Stories of the Transatlantic Slave Trade, where we'll uncover secrets about this important chapter in history that you probably never heard before. Number 1. The First Voyage. Imagine it's the year 1502, a time when the world was changing rapidly. In this era of exploration, a remarkable event unfolded that would shape the course of history. It all began with a small ship sailing across the vast Atlantic Ocean, but this was no ordinary journey. On board this ship were Africans who would become the first enslaved people to set foot in the Americas. Surprisingly, it wasn't a ship from Europe that brought the first enslaved Africans to the Americas, but a Portuguese vessel from West Africa. They arrived in a place we now know as the Bahamas. This little-known fact challenges what many of us have been taught about the slave trade. This voyage was a pivotal moment in history. It showed that the slave trade didn't start with Europeans capturing Africans. It began with African kingdoms engaging in the trade themselves. This revelation reshapes our understanding of the transatlantic slave trade. The arrival of this ship marked the beginning of a tragic era. It set in motion a chain of events that would shape the destiny of millions of people. Number 2. The Middle Passage, a journey of suffering. Once captured, the enslaved Africans faced a treacherous and horrific journey across the vast Atlantic Ocean. This journey, known as the Middle Passage, was a harrowing experience that tested their resilience and shattered their spirits. Packed like cargo in the dark, cramped holds of the slave ships, the enslaved Africans endured unimaginable conditions. The air was thick with despair, suffocating in the heat and stench of human suffering. Chains clinked and cries of anguish filled the air as families were torn apart, separated forever. The journey was long and perilous, lasting for weeks or even months. The enslaved Africans endured hunger, disease, and brutal treatment at the hands of the ship's crew. Many were shackled so tightly that their bodies grew raw and bloodied, leaving lasting scars. As the ship sailed through treacherous waters, storms raged, tossing the vessels violently. The enslaved Africans, already weakened by their confinement, were thrown about like rag dolls. Some were swept overboard, swallowed by the unforgiving waves. Those who survived clung to hope, praying for an end to their torment. But for many, their prayers went unanswered. Disease spread rapidly in the crowded and unsanitary conditions. Cholera, dysentery, and other illnesses claimed countless lives. The dead were thrown overboard, their bodies disappearing beneath the churning waters, leaving no trace of their existence. Number 3. Beyond the United States. When we think of the transatlantic slave trade, our minds often drift to the United States. But did you know that the majority of enslaved Africans did not end up there? In fact, only a tiny 6% found themselves on American shores. So where did the rest go? The Caribbean and South America became the main destinations for these enslaved men, women, and children. These regions were fertile grounds for plantations and sugarcane fields, hungry for labor to fuel their economies. The Caribbean islands, like Jamaica, Haiti, and Barbados, became bustling hubs of the slave trade. Enslaved Africans were put to work in sugar plantations, toiling under the hot sun and extracting sweet sap from the cane. Their labor produced a precious commodity that was exported to Europe, where it became a coveted ingredient for making sugar and rum. South America also had its share of enslaved Africans, with countries like Brazil and Colombia receiving a significant number. In these lands, enslaved Africans were forced to work on vast plantations, cultivating crops like coffee, tobacco, and cocoa, which I will get into in a moment. The fruits of their labor would be sent across the ocean to satisfy the growing demand in Europe. The journey for enslaved Africans did not end with their arrival in the Caribbean or South America. They faced a lifetime of back-breaking work, often treated as mere property rather than human beings. Their resilience and endurance would shape the culture and history of these regions. Number 4. Commodification of lives. Enslaved Africans were not just used for labor. They were treated as commodities, bought and sold like objects. Their lives were reduced to mere means for profit. These enslaved Africans were forced into various industries beyond the vast plantations of sugarcane. From cotton fields to tobacco farms, their labor was the backbone of a growing economy. The Caribbean islands, in particular, became hotspots for the production of sugarcane, as I stated. Enslaved Africans toiled day and night, enduring harsh conditions in order to grow this valuable crop. But it wasn't just sugar. These men and women were involved in producing other goods for export, such as coffee, indigo, and rice. Their forced labor fueled an insatiable demand for these commodities in the global market. The Transatlantic Slave Trade thrived on the backs of these enslaved individuals, who were treated as nothing more than a means to an end. Their lives were sacrificed for the wealth and power of others. Number 5, a lingering legacy. The transatlantic slave trade wasn't just something that happened in the past and was forgotten. Oh no, its impact can still be felt today. It created a whole new way of thinking about race, and it shaped the cultures and economies of the Americas. You see, the slave trade gave birth to a cruel and unfair system that divided people based on the color of their skin. It created a hierarchy where white people were seen as superior and black people were seen as inferior. This system of racial discrimination continued long after slavery was abolished, leaving deep scars on our society. But it wasn't just about discrimination. The transatlantic slave trade also brought together people from different parts of Africa, each with their own languages, traditions, and beliefs. Forced to live and work together in harsh conditions, they found ways to connect and create new cultures. In the Caribbean, for example, the blending of African, European, and indigenous cultures gave rise to vibrant music, dance, and food that we still enjoy today. Think about reggae, calypso, and jerk chicken. These are all part of the rich heritage left behind by the transatlantic slave trade. And let's not forget about the economic impact. The slave trade fueled the growth of industries like sugar, tobacco, and cotton, turning them into major moneymakers. The wealth generated by these industries helped to build cities, establish businesses, and even fund universities. But the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade isn't all positive. It left behind deep inequalities and disparities that persist to this day. We still see the effects in disparities in wealth, education, and opportunities. It's a painful reminder of the injustice that was done. So, as we reflect on the transatlantic slave trade, let's not forget its lasting impact. Let's work together to heal the wounds of the past and create a future where equality and justice prevail. And that's it from this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.